Audio in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Degenerates Clubhouse. Mondo, we have
Huh.
a goal today.
Uh-huh.
Got to get in and out.
Okay.
In and out. That's the goal for this episode, as opposed to when the goal is to get in and out, in and out, in and out, which is when you have sex for the first time.
I always loved the reference to that in Clockwork Orange.
What's that?
In Clockwork Orange, like they would say in out instead of like the narrator, instead of saying fucking, he would say the old, give her the old in and out, in and out. You don't remember that?
No. No, I don't. You know what? I actually think I subconsciously tried to retain as little information and memory from that movie as possible.
You didn't like it?
You know what? Not something I really need in my brain.
It's kind of a bummer. It's kind of a bummer of a movie. Like
Yeah.
like you feel kind of shitty.
Yeah, it's kind of a gross, fucked up movie, and it was super edgy at the time. It's like, oh, look at this guy.
Well, Kubrick is a good, his symbols and stuff that he hides in his movies.
Yeah, Kubrick, weird and edgy director. That's his thing.
Mm-hmm.
Makes all different types of movies, but they're all weird and edgy.
Yep.
So, in the effort of getting in and out, in and out, in and out, what is old Florida Man up to? Nothing phallic.
Florida man, causing mayhem when he can. Driving drunk as a rule, alligators in his pool. Look out, here comes the Florida man. Oh, down!
No. That it looks like it appear stream related. Anyway, Florida man wants to put up 6-foot penis statue in park as part of a religious display. A man is desperate to erect a 6-foot penis statue in a local park with claims it's part of a religious. What the fuck? Oh my god! Fucking advertisements. Eat shit. Eat shit. That was an advertisement from the link. Anyway.
Yeah, and you know what? On a side note, fuck the Coast Guard.
Fuck the Coast Guard.
You know, if you go in the ocean, what happens with hats? It's up to you. Learn how to swim or don't go in the ocean. Coast Guard unnecessary.
Anyway, back to the article.
You can't guard the coast. It's a movie. It comes in and out. There's waves. There's marine life. How are you going to guard that, Mondo?
Speaking of an episode that we want to go in and out.
Jesus.
Going back to the article, Chaz Stevens from Boca Raton in Florida has been sending emails and god damn this fucking grab. Oh, okay, it is say restart that. Chaz Stevens from Boca Raton in Florida has been sending emails far and wide to try and get permission for the 300-pound custom-made piece. His goal is to put the bizarre addition at Fort Lauderdale's famed corner at Las Olas, which plans to hire an off-duty police officer to protect his investment. Stevens has already received solid no from Deerfield Beach, but a possible maybe from Fort Lauderdale. These guys that write articles, they don't ever like double check grammar or so sometimes if I get caught up, it's because these guys suck. Anyway.
Yeah, but in this case the grammar's fine.
But a possible
maybe from Fort Lauderdale.
You don't think you'd put like maybe like in parentheses if it was like a quotation or something? Like I said, anyway.
If you're writing it was a direct quote, if Fort Lauderdale, they're like, hey, Chaz Stevens. First of all, I don't like the fact that his name is Chaz Stevens.
Okay.
I'm offended by that.
All right.
Why is his name Chaz?
Chaz is kind of just a douche name anyway.
I know, exactly. It's just way too specific and accurate for this story. But if Chaz went up to Fort Lauderdale, and they were like, maybe, and that's a direct quote, then you put it in quotes. But if you're not
moving on
directly quoting somebody, you don't put it in quotes.
Moving on. The atheist argues the statue is a religious display, just like the Christmas tree displayed at Fort Lauderdale's Las Olas Oceanside Park. His phallic monument was inspired by Japan's Shinto Kanamara Matsuri Festival of the Steel Phallus, which celebrates love, fertility, and the male genitalia.
Excellent job reading that.
Yeah.
Holy shit. So that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Wow. Japan's wild. They're a very straight-laced, button-up culture, and then they just get weird behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So I wonder, like, do you think they have their own giant penis statue. And in Japan, is it only like 4.5 feet tall? That was the Japanese people of little dicks joke.
Well,
yeah.
Asian people in general. Timeout. Jesus, this episode has been fucked since the very beginning.
Yeah, we should just start the whole episode over.
Awesome. Yeah, especially if the stream's all fucked. Anyway, activist Robert Walsh told a news outlet that he hopes the city denies Stephen's request. Let him sue us. It's beyond vulgar. It's not art. Children are going to see that, he said. It's just not appropriate for Las Olas. He's just doing this for his own narcissistic tendencies. So everyone is looking at Chaz again.
All right. Just for some cultural background, I have pulled up a picture from this festival in Japan. There is a giant penis statue. It looks almost exactly the same. So he is being accurate, I guess, culturally. And the part that cracks me up is there's a little Japanese pagoda erected behind the penis. Prime use of erected. Anytime you can work erected into this story, you have to. I think it's like journalism 101. That's what they teach you. Always cite your sources, and then always write erected in stories about penises. That's like the first thing you learn. Anyhow, but there's this very traditional looking Japanese pagoda, and then there's the and you know what? I think it is a little bit smaller. I think it is a little bit smaller. I mean, it's a little difficult to tell from the perspective, but yeah.
Wait, so if they were to erect something like that in Africa, you think it would just be like it would just tower over the tallest building ever?
I don't know if it would be quite that big, but yeah, I mean, I think color wise it would have to be a little different.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, especially in some African cultures, they're just very tall, so you want it to tower over the people.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a little bit longer.
Exactly why.
I would also like to have one made that has some hydraulics. So it starts short, and then yeah, just as the festivities roll on, as the crowd gets a little bit more excited.
Or how about it reacts to like the seasons? Like when it gets cold, it just goes like really small, and then
that'd be amazing if they made it out of some like heat sensitive material.
Yeah.
So it just expanded and contracted. I mean, but just dramatically.
Yeah. This comes after one grandma wanted a giant penis monument on her grave. Caterina Orduña Perez, 99, better known as Doña Cata by her community, took an alternative, arguably iconic, approach to planning her farewell. She skipped over the flower arrangements and touching sentiments and instead opted for a statue that resembled a 5-foot tall penis and balls weighing nearly 600 pounds. Whoa. Elephantitis of the grave marker. Her grandson, Alvaro Mota Limon, unveiled the hefty figure last summer. And that was it for the article. What do you think, dude? Do you think like a giant dick in the middle of Lakewood somewhere would be kind of cool?
I mean, just in terms of statues in our country.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've probably covered some stories where there are contentions about different statues, from people who tried to overthrow the country in Civil War, vets, and this, that, and the other. Honestly, not the worst thing.
Right.
It's a dick. You know what? Like 50% of the population has one. Not that big of a deal. Like whatever. You know what? I would love there's a spot in Asbury Park where a lot of geese congregate, and I think that would be a perfect spot. Just giant pink dick and just geese shitting and walking all over it. Perfect.
I would think a more appropriate place would be like whatever the gay district or area is. You know what I mean? Like in Long Beach, California, it'd be like 4th and Cherry right there. There's pink rainbows everywhere, a bunch of gay bars, and just needs a giant dick in the middle of it just to kind of put the cherry on top, I guess. Insert phallic reference. Yeah, that was it for Florida Man. Moving on to Ask Reddit. Reddit question number 1. What is so ancient only an internet veteran can remember? Do you have one? I'm sure you've got one. You're a little more.
Yeah. So I remember, like, it was like really pre World Wide Web, at least me being aware of it.
Uh-huh.
There was this Prodigy service where it
Uh-huh.
was like its own, like, smaller, shittier version of the internet.
Uh-huh.
Where and you know what, America Online was kind of the same, right? Like, you weren't accessing web pages exactly, you're accessing little sections of this website,
Yeah.
and it was very difficult to navigate, right? There wasn't let's just stick with America Online, because you probably remember that too, right?
AOL. You used to get the CDs 10 hours free.
Yeah, no, they would send you these CDs, like people hand out like flyers and coupons at the at the grocery store. You just get them constantly, and like I was saying, it just wasn't clearly organized, or there wasn't, like, a web address that you're typing in. You just had to. A lot of it was like a sort of a graphic sort of overlay, where, like, you're clicking pictures and going to different sections of the site, and it was always really hard to. You almost had to remember. It's like, okay, you have to click on this thing, and you go to this thing, and then you get to this part of AOL that you wanted to go to, and it was like uncovering little treasure troves. You find, like, a weird application or program or something that was buried deep within the site. You're like, oh, where the fuck did this come from? What is this? As a kid, you're always looking for games or trying to find pictures, and the pictures, just a, like, low quality, blurry, pixelated JPEG would take like 3.5 minutes to download, and you're just watching it in real time. It's like, oh, I could see their eyebrows now.
Yeah.
Okay, now their nose. And
Sure, you were looking at eyebrows and noses. You were looking.
well,
at...
no, that's the first thing that loads, because it loaded top bottom,
Okay.
and you're just kind of like, it's fucking tits. Let's go. Damn it.
Culprit. I did it too. Like, waited like 2 hours for a fucking page to download just so you could see like one tit. It's like, yeah, I can go to the convenience store and go buy a Playboy, but
Dude, and this was 90s, so it probably was like at least personally, I was probably like searching photos of, like, late 80s, early 90s models, so like Cindy Crawford and Kathy Ireland.
Yeah.
Which, God, I don't even want to. I bet Cindy Crawford still looks flawless, but I feel like for some reason Kathy Ireland probably didn't age as well.
Yeah, a lot of them.
If I wanted to look it up, I could download that picture in the blink of an eye.
So I don't remember what came first, chicken or the egg, but I remember goofing around with MIRC, like IRC channels, where you'd be able to access other, like, people would like designate a certain folder to share, and you can access it through it. But it was all like almost in like DOS format, like code, where you have to do like all prompts to access a certain thing, and then you have to go to the file, and you have to know like the shortcuts and the keys to like the commands. You have to know the commands and the prompts to get to, like, I want to download a song, and depending on how many songs you download, it would take different time. But it was basically like Napster before Napster, or maybe they ran in side by side. Obviously Napster was easier because it made just the graphic user where you just click on that song or click, and then they would download. The old school ways, you'd have to like type in a fucking code to make all that happen. And I remember downloading like movies and games and MP3s and shit, and you really had to be kind of like a ninja with the code part stuff.
Like a ninja.
Yeah, I was a code ninja. Dude.
That's the second thing you learn. First is shurikens. You learn how to throw shurikens. Second thing is coding
in MIRC. And yeah, I remember just it would take forever depending on what you try to download. You could download porn, obviously, but it would, the speeds and
you thought you were a hacker, didn't you? You're like, yes, I'm hacking into this.
I thought it was kind of cool, like knowing how to like control C for copy, control V for paste, and you'd like do that.
Oh, you knew?
Yeah.
You knew keyboard shortcuts?
No, but I'm saying, like,
so advanced.
That in addition to like having to know how to execute a certain thing, it was funny to figure it out, because it wasn't like I'm sure you could have taken a class or something to learn how to do it, but I learned it by just fucking with it, like just fucking with the program, and yeah, that was the good old days of the interwebs. There's no way kids would have the patience for that kind of shit. Like now it's got to be like, I need to press a button and get what I want to get. There's no.
I feel like there was so much hacker related content, like in movies and shows. There was we're gonna hack into the database, and there were entire movies just about hackers. I mean, wasn't that movie Sneakers?
Sneakers. Hackers was Angelina Jolie, I believe. It's funny you say that because I was watching Son-in-Law. Right now it's on YouTube Movies for free. And I was watching Son-in-Law, and like Pauly Shore goes and shows his little kid how to like hack into his computer. He just like does some random typing, and then like he tries to like break down what he did. He's like, well, I bypassed the mainframe, and he basically used like a bunch of lingo to make him sound smart, but none of it was like actual like I had to bypass the mainframe and do the blah 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 blah. And you're like, okay, Pauly Shore, you're not.
So just Sneakers. That was the one I was thinking of though. Mm-hmm. Came out in 1992.
Was that Redford? Robert Redford? Or...
Computer hacker Martin, played by Robert Redford, heads a group of specialists who test the security of various San Francisco companies. Martin is approached by two national security agency officers who ask him to steal a newly invented decoder. So I guess he's not really hacking in the movie; he's just stealing something. But
yeah,
there was so much hacker content, and it's now that there really actually are hackers like out there, and everything is digital. I don't remember the last time there was a hacker related movie or show, or maybe do you think there are, and we're just so used to it that it doesn't register?
Well, the last kind of sort of hacker-ish realm movie I think was The Matrix. You remember The Matrix, like with
no, what was that? Tell me more.
Fuck you. The main guy was like, hacking into a system to try to download this thing, and then he got the prompt like follow the white rabbit and blah 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 blah. But yeah, there hasn't been a whole lot of stuff since. I don't think. Not now. It's
which is funny because now it is actually a lot more relevant, and there are. Hacking used to be so basic. There was a book I read called, I think it was something like The Cuckoo's Egg or The Dodo's Egg, something like that. It was a book about like an actual hacker, and it used to be they knew that people wouldn't reset default passwords, so like he would hack into things by just writing password as the password and just do that a ton, or it was like there's something else like like guest 123 that was used a lot, and that was how he'd always get the first level of clearances. He would just put in password, and I remember reading that. I was like, this is really what hacking used to be. Holy crap.
Yeah. Now
it actually is pretty, I think, elaborate and intricate. No hacking shows, Mondo.
Let's see what some of the Redditors had to say about that question. User Danny and his dinosaur writes board.com. That's an actual website?
Sounds like it.
Board.com.
I mean, any at this point, any word that is like coherent is a website of some sort.
I guess.
All the domains are taken.
User Blackout1322 writes, when we used to risk getting viruses just to get cool cursors. You used to risk getting viruses just to get like anything on the internet. Like it really was the internet security program software weren't that good back then. And even if you had one, you would still sometimes get caught with a malware or something that would fuck with your computer. And then you'd have to reformat the whole thing and start all over. It was fucked to get a virus back in the day. User Janky_pants writes, all links were underlined.
That is true.
Oh yeah, huh? All the hyperlinks were blue and underlined.
And speaking of being a hacker noting code, you could even back then you could change the color if you wrote the code differently. So instead of it being like blue for the link and then turning purple or whatever, you could make the link yellow and then it would turn green when you visited it, and that would just confuse everyone. So then you just have to put it back because people got programmed where a link I haven't visited is blue.
User It's Bulking Season Lads writes, if going on a long car journey, having to print off directions from MapQuest.
That's not really an internet thing, but yeah, I mean that is true. I still remember both doing that and then getting lost, being really off the beaten path. There was one time, Mondo, I got so lost in the directions, I just realized like I'm gonna just drive east until I hit a road I know, and like it was like 2 hours.
Holy
And
shit.
I finally got back. I'm like, oh, I'm in New Jersey now. I know this road. And then I could get back.
All right, last one I'll read for that one. User Grendel54 writes counters on web pages. That's funny. Yeah,
there was, wasn't, the one that I really liked, it wasn't just counters, because you get to the bottom of the website. So there'd be like, we had 4,000 visitors, but you remember the guest books? That one was even better.
I don't remember that.
Oh, so there's like a little, you could, it was just like it sounds like, there's like a little link, and it would take you to a spot where you could write, like I visited this website. So you just see a list of all the people who signed in saying that they came to the website.
What was the purpose of that?
What's the purpose of a counter? Just to show that there is traffic. And
I guess. Yeah, you're right. That's it for Reddit question number 1. Reddit question number 2. What is the worst thing you've ever eaten?
Let me think about it. You go first.
So I've always thought of myself as like a very adventurous eater. Like, granted, when I was younger, when I was probably under 10, 15, I was pretty picky. Just like most kids, I would only eat certain things or whatever. And I forget what happened where someone was like, hey, try this dish. And I was like, no, I don't want to try it. It looks gross. And then subsequently, like, they made me feel bad for not wanting to try their dish that they took time to make and everything. So I felt guilty. They gave me shame for not, for saying that I wouldn't try something new. And then I grew up, and then my tastes changed, and willingness to try other things changed. So when I was a banker at Citibank, I had this coworker of mine who was probably, if I was like 22, he was like 45. Like, he was twice my age. He had this like weird gimp to his leg. Like, he was born with this leg deficiency thing where he walked with like a hobble. But he's otherwise a really sweet dude, really cool guy. And one day we had like some kind of like potluck something or other, and before he brings his dishes, he's like, "Hey, Armando, do you want me to bring something for you? I know you like to try weird shit." I was like, "Okay, bring it on." It was wrapped in plastic. It was called, like, I don't remember if it was called like 1,000-year-old egg or 100-year-old egg or whatever, but it was like this egg that was fermented for I don't know how fucking long. And then on top of that,
100 years, bro.
Probably, I believe it. And on top of that, so there was a fermentation, all that stuff, but then it was also like they basted it in like some kind of chili seasoning sauce thingy, vinegary thing. Open the thing out of the plastic bag. The smell hits me, and that shit was fucking pretty rank. But I was like, fuck it. I said I was gonna eat it. Took a bite of it, and I was like, oh no, I do not like this. I woofed it down. I finished it out of respect for the guy that went out of his way to bring in an extra one for me. But I was not down with that. I don't think I'd ever have that again.
Yeah, I still don't know. Because I feel like I've probably just eaten some really terrible things when I was hungry. And I'm sure a lot of that had to do with the preparation, like things that weren't completely cooked, or I mean, I do remember eating just completely raw hamburger. And that wasn't even my fault. I was in a restaurant in New Jersey. Speaking of New Jersey, and I order a medium rare hamburger. Pretty normal order, right?
Yeah.
And the waitress is like, that's really terrible for you. You should get it medium. And I said, okay, thank you for your input. I would like it medium rare.
Oh, yeah.
And then she's like, no, but for your health. And there's this whole back and forth. And this lasts probably like 30 seconds where she's just arguing with me. And I finally like, look, you're going to bring the medium rare hamburger or not? Like, that's what I'm ordering. Like, and she gets all huffy and goes back in the kitchen, and it comes out just raw. Like, it was lightly warmed around the outside. I mean, I think the center of it was probably still frozen.
Oh no.
I mean, you could tell she went to the cook and she's like, fuck this dude. Like,
yeah, that's the one thing you learn if you ever had worked like any kind of food service or fast food. You're like, sitting on that side of it, like how you can fuck with somebody that pisses you off, like how easy it is to just like spit in their food or do something fucked up. So now that now one has done that, you're like, on the flip side, I'm gonna try my best to not piss off.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
I want a medium rare hamburger. Should I have just been like, Oh, okay. No, let me not get what I'm asking for, and you bring me out.
I've walked out of restaurants.
So I probably would have done that, except we were there to see my uncle give a musical performance. So it kind of would have defeated the purpose if we left
Yeah,
before he started playing.
makes sense.
And she brought out that hamburger, and then there's like, it's like, oh, let me know how it is. You kind of gave me that
Yeah.
thing, and I ate it just a fucking spider.
Oh no.
Like there was a battle of us just. I was gonna say a pissing match, and then I
Yeah.
was like, I'm trying to imagine. She was definitely a waitress, older lady. And you know what? I don't know why. I don't know how we took a weird turn here. I feel like she could pee standing up.
Probably.
I feel like feel like in somewhere in the New Jersey handbook, like New Jersey Girl Scouts, most places they teach you like whittling and sewing, and I think in the New Jersey Girl Scouts they probably teach you how to pee standing up.
Yeah. Did you get sick from it at all?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to get.
I had an iron stomach at that point. Not so
I
much anymore.
I was with my last company and I was at like some company had an open house and invited vendors and I was one of their vendors. I show up and it was kind of a potluck BYO food type of deal, but obviously I was out of town so I had to bring some other dish. But one of the guys that was there locally had made a dish, a Mexican dish called carne azteca, which is just like Aztec meat basically. But it's essentially what would be ceviche, but instead of raw fish marinating in the lime juices and the citrus and all this stuff, it's raw ground beef. So it's raw ground beef with lime or lemon juice and salt and pepper and a bunch of other shit. And it's an interesting dish. You can't have too much of it. It's it's tartare. It's like people.
Yeah. Well, it's not the word. Like the one you just can't eat raw is chicken. You're just gambling with your life at that point.
Yeah, I once read some meme thing where someone was like, "I like to order my chicken medium rare." When I no, you got to get it cooked all the whole way through. You people are fucking dumb. Some of the users on Reddit have had this to say. User something Natiaz, I don't fuck you. Was at a backyard concert. There was a bowl of Jawbreakers. Grabbed one, chomped down, realized they were smoke bombs. Terrible, vile, spit and hacked, and nearly threw up. Why would there be a bowl of just smoke bombs sitting in the middle of a backyard? I don't know. That's fucking gross. User Panda388 writes, "You chomped down on what you thought was a Jawbreaker." Oh no, sorry, that was not another answer. User Ad Killer writes, "My roommate's nails. He had clipped them and put them into my Coke can that he thought I was done with." Oh no, that's fucking gross. Have you ever drank some like a beer or something where someone like dropped the ash like a cigarette butt in there?
No.
Oh,
but I do remember on one of my recruiting trips for lacrosse. And with lacrosse players, particularly from the East Coast, dipping is a big thing. And then when you dip, you have a spitter, meaning it's usually like a beer bottle or can that they're spitting the chewing tobacco and saliva into. And one of them picked up a spitter, thinking it was a beer bottle, and took a swig of it and then spit it all over the floor. And I was like, I was never going to ever start dipping, but if the thought even crossed my mind, all I have to do is think about this moment.
I think I turn green and just vomit, like just fucking like force myself to fucking throw up. That's disgusting.
Okay.
Last one I'll read for Reddit and we'll get the fuck out of here. The user Lady Amphetamine writes, "A stink bug crawled into my straw and I took a sip. Stink bug in the mouth. It took forever to get the taste out of my mouth." Yeah, it's gotta have some juices in there that are not good for you. That was it for Ask Reddit. Last segment for the episode. We're going to discuss a show on HBO Max.
Correct.
Called The Last of Us, based off of a video game.
So, just to start,
okay,
just want to take a quick overview of HBO Max. I feel like right now, when it comes to the streaming services in general, in terms of consistency, I think they're probably putting out the highest quality stuff. Like some of the shows, maybe not your cup of tea, maybe not the genre you like, but I feel like in general they do whatever that show is really well.
Yeah.
Because we've covered a couple things that have been on HBO Max. We did his Dark Materials. Maybe you don't like that sort of fantasy, but I think it's a really well made show. And one that I don't think you've seen, but I somehow got roped into watching was Euphoria. And I just seen so many references and things to that show where I was like, all right, I want to see one episode just to get the general vibe of it. And I feel like it's like some 40-year-old writer producers imagining of what they think teenagers are like, which is funny because I mean these kids are like constantly partying. I think they go to school about 14 minutes a day, and they're all into like drugs. And I feel like teenagers these days they're almost like corporate. Like they have shit to do. They have a schedule.
Yeah, they're nerds.
They
They're
got
like way more nerd. It used to be uncool to be kind of thought of as a nerd, in our time, and it became a cool thing to be a nerd. Being a skateboarder, being into video games, like those are now like, okay, you're not made fun of because of you do something like that. So yeah, just in general, I think kids these days are more bookwormy, more.
It's bookwormy, but also it's like they're like, I have life goals. I have shit I have to accomplish.
Yeah,
I've got my 5-year-old plan. I'm like, you were 12.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Go play outside. Like
Yeah.
that is not productive to my life goals. But anyhow, so this is just a general endorsement for HBO shows, and that gave me a lot of hope, right? Because we've seen a lot of video game adaptations that go awry. Fair to say?
Some, yeah.
Like what are some really terrible ones you could think of?
Well, I don't think any of the Laura Tomb Raider movies the movies themselves weren't that great. I remember playing some of the video games and they were fun, and then you watch the movie, you're like, eh.
Those were pretty bad. And then specifically, this same sort of video game producer and writer did a series called Uncharted, and they tried to do an adaptation of that with Tom Holland, and apparently it was kind of a disaster. I didn't see it, but did you?
Yeah, I saw the movie. I never played the video game, so I didn't have any reference to go off of. I couldn't have been disappointed. It was just an action movie to me, and it was okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't 5-star. It was fine.
My general impression of the movie, you could tell me if you think this is right or wrong, was it was just a bunch of sort of action sequences strung together, and there wasn't really a coherent plot. And what the creator said was, he was like, they just tried to take a video game and put it onto film. He's like, that doesn't really work, right? Like there's some parts in a video game that you shouldn't put on film. I mean, specifically, and hopefully they didn't, but in that game, you just kill a lot of people, like an uncomfortable amount of people. And in a video game, you're kind of fine with it.
Yeah.
But if you're just watching Tom Holland just you sneak up and murder a bunch of people in cold blood, you might be like, I don't really feel good about this. I liked Tom Holland is sort of the plucky, young, fresh face, and I don't think I'm gonna ever look at him the same after watching him murder a lot of people. So this, God, I gotta pull the guy's name up, but the Last of Us creators said that he was really apprehensive to have another one of his games, made into a live action. And one of the things he was the most happy about when he started talking to the showrunners who did The Last of Us was that they had ideas on how to expand the game, how it wasn't going to just follow step by step the beats of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And we already saw some of that in the first episode.
Yeah. So Aaron played the game years back, and then we knew this show was coming out. He's like, hey dude, you want to borrow the video game so you could play it and watch or play the game through before this series comes out. So I literally got to borrow Aaron's PS4 like 2 weeks ago, and like I just, in the matter of like 4 or 5 days, I finished the entire game just so I could watch the show with at least that kind of reference. And
well, sure. And the way I put it was, when you play a game, it's definitely going to influence the way you watch the show and vice
Right.
versa. And I was like, oh no, what if the show fucking sucks?
Yeah.
And then it ruined the game for you.
Yeah.
I was like, I know the game is good. So I was like, I got to get it to Mondo so you can at least experience the game fresh and not have it ruined by the show.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like the same when you read a book. You know, you read the book and then you see the movie adaptation, and most of the times the movie doesn't do the book any justice. So I was afraid. Yeah, I was afraid that if I played the game through, that I watched the show and I'd be disappointed. But I played the game anyway, finished it nonetheless. Said fuck it. You know, I figured Pedro Pascal's a good enough actor, and then that girl Bella Ramsey is a good enough actress that you're gonna hire good actors and actresses. You're probably it's gonna be very hard to fuck it up as long as the writing is decent, as long as it's decent. So watching this show, I came with that kind of perspective. Like I kind of know generally what's gonna happen with the show, but I'd like to see how they do it in film or in
So at this point, just to give, if you're not familiar with The Last of Us at all, this is a zombie related show, right?
Kinda.
No, definitely. They're zombies. They're not like the traditional.
Yeah, not the traditional. I eat brains, I bite you, you get bitten, and then you become a zombie. It's a little bit different.
There's a different slant, but definitely 100% a post apocalyptic zombie sort of show, and it takes, like, initially it takes place a little bit earlier, and then you have a time jump, and then you're in this world where these and let's actually get into it. Let's go into the start of the show,
Okay.
because it was a little bit weird, and the fact that the show The Last of Us, not the game but the show, started with this like 1960 something television show.
Yeah.
Where and I was also trying to figure out, like, what is the show, because it seemed to almost be kind of like a talk show
Where they're talking about science stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the host is making like David Letterman-esque jokes, but he's talking to pandemic scientists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not probably what I would have booked if I was David Letterman in 1960. Maybe David Letterman in 2020, but and this one guy is laying out the fact that he's not worried about virus-based plagues. He's very cavalier about it too. He's like, yeah, like, we always survive them, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's like maybe like several millions or hundreds of millions of people will die, but like we will persist, which makes sense, right?
Right.
We made it through the Black Plague.
I suppose. I don't know enough about science to say that shit's true, but whatever, you go with it, you roll with it. When the guy's explaining it, this scientist guy's explaining, you're like, oh yeah, okay.
Well, and I think that's sort of borne out, right? Like we have gone through some really gnarly viruses, and typically the problem with viruses is either they're so deadly that they kill too quickly that they can't spread, or we can adapt quickly enough, and our immune systems, maybe they go from being a big problem to being really annoying before our whole species is wiped out. But this sort of very self-important, a little bit smug scientist, his whole deal was like, but what if it wasn't a virus, Mondo? What if it was a fungus?
What if it was a fungus, Aaron?
Well, and apparently this is what I kept saying the creator, but Neil Druckmann, who wrote The Last of Us, he heard about these ants that get taken over by a fungus, and it completely changes their brains, like their whole mission in life. They basically get controlled by this fungus, and
It rewires their
to help them spread more fungus to more ants. And this guy's like, oh, what if instead of ants it was people? Oh my god, crazy. And then we get The Last of Us. So I thought that was, I mean, it was nice to help set up the idea and introduce, like, oh, this is a different sort of zombie plague than you're used to. It's a fungal plague, which does make sense, dude. Hey, you know how fucking hard it is just to get rid of mold in your house?
Yeah, it's fucked up. You gotta basically, like, if you really want to get down to it, you gotta just take the entire wood out, like, depending on how fucked up it is.
So yeah. So and then we jump to, I forget when it is, but it's prior to like present day.
Yeah.
And most of the beginning of the episode is following not Joel, but his daughter Sarah.
Yeah.
And her kind of experience of the day in their town that this whole virus breaks out.
Yeah.
This fungus breaks out. I'm so programmed with zombie content, and she's really kind of the protagonist through a good chunk of the first episode.
Yeah, you get to watch, especially if you haven't played the video game, right? You go in with a blank slate, you're watching it, you see this girl, and it's you're living what she's doing through her eyes. So you're like, okay, obviously, your thought is she's the central character. She's the lead. She's the main character.
So to wrap it up with the non-spoiler segment of this, and then we'll get into some quick spoilers and get out of here. Mondo, in and out. You kind of go through, because the first episode was long, right? Was it like 120 minutes?
An hour and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a movie, basically.
Yeah, short movie.
You follow her through the first half, and then you have a time jump to 20 years later, and then you follow her dad around, played by Pedro Pascal, who's just he's lost the joie de vivre. Do you know what that is?
I'm gonna guess.
Yeah.
Joy in life.
Yeah, the joy of life. Joie de vivre.
Okay, sure.
Joie de vivre.
I think in and out.
That is part of the joie de vivre for sure. So now let's just get into some spoilers and recap of that episode and just get a quick discussion. And so you're watching this whole thing, unfold. A lot of it felt very typical
of most outbreak type movies,
right? Like things are a little bit off. Ooh, there's a lot of police cars on the street. What could that mean? We don't know.
Shit on the news saying people are getting sick and acting violent, and
the part that I liked, where I was like, oh, this would really have creeped me out, was it's her dad's birthday, and she steals some money to get his watch fixed. And when she's at the watchmaker, the watch
jeweler,
repairer, his wife just comes in and she's like, we're getting the fuck out of here. Which
the jeweler's wife.
Yeah. And I was like, credit to that woman. She could have given the girl a little bit more context.
Yeah.
But and then the kind of first half of the episode ends with everything completely breaking out. There's pandemonium. People are turning into fungal zombies, and they're trying to escape.
What's scary too, like the whole zombie lore, is that these are not like the slow moving, like these are fucking fast zombies, like fucking straight sprinting at your ass, trying to fucking infect you.
Yeah, and we've seen that before, in like 28 Days Later?
28 Days Later has fast zombies. There's been a couple movies that do. I think Train to Busan does fast zombies as well.
And not in this episode, but later on, the zombies get even weirder and more fucked up than I think mostly anything we've seen.
Because it's a fungus. It's not like one and the same. Like as a fungus spreads, the more weird these infected people become.
Yeah, well, and that was one of the things with the ants. Like the fungus changes their physiology. Thank you. Got caught up there. My tongue took a left turn when I was trying to go right.
Aaron couldn't get his tongue in and out fast enough.
That's what she said. So anyhow, the part that one I think was just very well done was, we've seen this sort of scene before, right? Trying to escape this cataclysmic thing. The roads are jammed. We have to go this way.
Yeah.
We've seen it done before, but I think they did a really good job of executing that.
Yes.
Like particularly in shows where the budget isn't, $100 billion. I don't know how much it is here. Sometimes it can feel kind of janky. And I think they did a really, really good job because they grounded the whole thing in Sarah's perspective.
Yeah.
So you are kind of seeing it through her eyes. And even though we've seen this sort of scene play out before, like she hasn't.
Yeah.
And you kind of felt that. You felt
panic.
Yeah.
She's panicked. She's like, what the fuck? What's going on? Like, and then her dad and her uncle are like not really cluing her in, and like they're not telling her what's going on. They're not painting a perfect picture.
Well, because also they don't know.
Yeah.
But you feel that, right? You
Yeah.
feel that uncertainty and confusion, and they're just trying to get out. And there is one part in particular. This is a double spoiler for you guys. In the game, one of the turning points in this sort of intro section is they're trying to escape. The roads are clogged. They're trying to go through city streets, and there's people running away. And it really has that like rats jumping from a sinking ship feeling, where it's like, why are they all running in the opposite direction we're going? And as they're trying to back out, they get hit by a car.
Yeah.
And in that section, you're just bracing for it. If you've played the game,
When you're watching the show,
yeah,
you're thinking they're gonna replay that scene exactly the way the video game did it.
And the
car comes close. You're like, oh, here it is. You're like, you see the car. You're like, oh, here it is. They're about to get T-boned, and then the car doesn't hit them. You're like, what the fuck just happened? And the car keeps going,
and you kind of relax for a second. You're like, oh, okay, I guess maybe it's the car comes later, and then they get hit with a plane.
Yeah, then the plane crashes, and the fucking plane parts just start flying everywhere, and yeah, then the plane demolishes the vehicle there and flips it over.
But the ending of that section was the same as the game, and that was one of the things in the game where you're just like, oh shit, like what am I in for?
Yeah.
Because up until now, like it has felt like Sarah is the protagonist.
Yeah.
And as they're trying to escape, they're stopped by a soldier, and you're like,
the military is trying to contain like the zone where there's an infected.
And in the game, you're like, oh great, you made it to the part where you're saved by the military.
Yeah.
And then you realize, they're just like Mondo said, they're just trying to contain it by any means necessary. And these soldiers given orders to kill them, and shoots at Joel and Sarah, grazes Joel, hits Sarah, and then the soldier's killed by Joel's brother, Tommy.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is just a what the fuck. Wait, you can't, that's one of those things in games where you're like,
yeah, there are rules. Like you don't kill little kids.
Yeah. You don't kill kittens. You don't kill little kids. The main character has goddamn plot armor. Of course they're going to survive.
Yeah.
Don't kill the main character that you've become emotionally attached to.
Yeah.
In the game, I think it's like the first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And in the show, that was actually one thing they really gave Sarah more screen time. You learn more about her life. They fleshed it out where you get really attached to her.
Again, you're convinced this show is about this girl. You're thinking this Last of Us revolves around this little girl and her dad. That's what you're thinking. And then both in the game and the show, she gets shot and she bleeds out in her dad's arms. What the fuck?
I mean, I think it is not a fun, enjoyable scene to watch.
No,
that's not one where I'm like, let me go back and rewatch the scene of Sarah getting killed.
Yeah,
really only need to see it once, but I think they did an excellent job.
That's when it's good writing, good storytelling, because you get invested in something, and then guess what? Your character that you're halfway invested in is killed.
Well, and good acting and filmmaking.
Yeah.
Because to your point earlier, where it's like they got good actors. Because I feel like the voice acting was so good in the game, and it's really hard not to compare what's happening in the show to what happened in the game. And I felt like it could have come out flat. It could have, death scenes are hard, right? Sometimes they can feel really hokey, and I don't think that was the case at all. I think they nailed it. So then you get a time skip to 20 years later, and that whole beginning section, I think, in the storytelling is really, really crucial because
it's setting you up for what may be going in Joel's mind when he encounters.
Yeah, well, so Joel does some morally questionable things throughout the whole story, right? And you need that beginning just to see how his perspective was shaped, kind of why he's wired the way he is.
Yeah.
And then it basically picks up with Joel in this like post-apocalyptic world where they're in the quarantine zone. Everyone is, they're doing all these like side hustles, like selling pills and
you're doing shit labor, and you're getting paid by the military in like rations. You're given like a ration ticket like basically this is how you're gonna eat by this little coupon.
Right. Oh, and this was a nice touch just to really hit home like how much more fucked up it was. In the show, they've got Joel both doing his sort of illegal side hustles, but doing military designated work. And the military designated work is just carrying bodies to like a funeral pyre, just to be burned,
burning them.
Which is shit. And then afterwards, he goes to ask him, like, try to get a job for the next day. And I can't remember what the first job is, but the second job had something to do with cleaning out the sewers. And he's just like, which one pays more?
It's like the one with the shit.
That's sometimes how it goes. And then you quickly learn that like Joel has his own stuff going on.
Yeah, he's like smuggling pharmaceuticals and distributing them to the military personnel, and then they're giving him in return like more food rations, or like, hey, here's a place where you can go, ransack this place, or there's this. He basically he's got an in with the law.
So I like the world building they did. They spent a little bit more time just on what that actual setup is, what the world is like, than they did in the game. And long story short, with that, Joel's partner Tess has an altercation with somebody, like another smuggler, and they basically decide they have to go after him, and this leads to them killing him. And he was supposed to have a very, very special sort of smuggling project at the behest of the Fireflies, who are this sort of like resistance group, right? Like that's one thing that I don't think that was in the game, but like in the show, you see these people getting executed. Just was it hanging, or did they shoot them?
No, they hung them. They had the gallows, and they were hanging them.
Yeah, just old school style lynching. And you realize that this sort of guerrilla freedom fighting group, the Fireflies, is at odds with the military. They've been going back and forth. I don't think they did hang them in the game, did they?
I don't remember. I don't think so. I don't remember.
And so anyhow, you in the show, you skip the part where Joel just murders like 100 million people. I thought that was a good, he's already not the most sympathetic character. Just like I was saying with Tom Holland, I'm like, I think if you just murdered 20 of these other smugglers, that might be a problem.
Yeah.
But they do kill the smuggler, the head smuggler,
the guy that set him up,
just cold-blooded too.
Yep.
Very, very. This is a very like, you or us sort of world that they're crafting. And then they get hooked up with Bella Ramsey, who
that's the actress's name, not the character's name.
Yeah. And there was a lot more with her, like, because we don't, in the game, you don't meet Ellie until that point, but you kind of see her in captivity and you get the feeling she's a little bit of a firecracker.
Yes.
Little rough around the edges.
Yeah, she flips them off. She flips the people off. She curses at them, and she's only like 15, 14 years old, and she's like, fuck you, and giving him the bird, and like, but which you could kind of, I mean, anyone with a little bit of fight in them, if you get detained and they don't tell you why, they're locking you up, your responses will be like, fuck you, let me go. What's going on? Tell me something. Why am I being locked up? And they don't answer any of these questions. They're like, they can't tell you. So this Firefly resistance group, who you think has, anytime you're going against the establishment, you think the Fireflies are the good guys, but then you see them like, oh wait, they kidnapped this little girl. Like, what the fuck's going on? Like, there's something that the Fireflies aren't saying. You find out, big reveal, big spoiler here, is that Ellie was infected with this fungus, but she doesn't like all these other people. She doesn't turn into like this mindless zombie-like person. It left like a disgusting scar on her arm. And that was like the worst of it.
Yeah, and so we should have said this whole part of the show is taking place in Boston. And so Joel and Tess had just killed the smuggler that was supposed to smuggle Ellie out of town.
Yeah.
Because the Fireflies want to try to find a cure. They think they can, study Ellie and develop some sort of fungal vaccine. And now it's kind of down to Joel and Tess to get her out of Dodge.
So the Fireflies, they tell Joel, like, hey, you're good at smuggling shit. Smuggle this little kid out, and we got a place to take her. We got to, we're looking into researching this, whatever. So Joel, Joel and Tess reluctant at first, but then they give them incentive to do.
Well, especially reluctant because within like a tenth of a second of meeting them, Ellie tries to stab Joel.
Yeah,
it's like Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So I mean that's more or less where the episode ends. Let's just a couple things. One, how did you feel about the portrayal of Ellie this far? I think, and I'm saying Ellie specifically because I'll just say I think Pedro Pascal nailed Joel to a T. It feels like the game character, but also feels true to Pedro Pascal. It doesn't feel like he's trying to do a bad impression of the character from the game. So let's just start with Ellie. How did you think about?
It's gonna sound kind of weird. Bella Ramsey's a fantastic actress.
Yeah.
When I saw her in the Game of Thrones, I was blown away. A lot of people were blown away. Like, this little fucking girl's got some chops. So I had high hopes for her in this series. I think maybe it's just the way Bella looks.
She does not have a sort of sweet angelic face.
Yeah, she doesn't have a sweet angelic, cutesy little innocent girl face. And Bella right off the bat is like, fuck you. Like it's not the cutesy little innocent girl. You don't get that from Bella Ramsey's performance.
Yeah, well, and you know what? That was something I had remarked on because we watched the first episode together, and I was like, dude, I think they made Ellie way too hardcore.
Yeah.
Because the original character of Ellie was actually based on a young Ellen at that point, Ellen Page.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, and if you look, they even look very similar. The voice actress actually sounds a little bit like a young Ellen Page. And I had forgotten. I think that had sort of colored my memory of the character because I forgot Ellie does try to stab Joel pretty early too in the game. Like Ellie was also a firecracker, but it was softened by both the way she looked and sound. She was this sort of like sweet, lithe looking girl, and she has that kind of Ellen Page voice where it's it softens her a lot.
Yeah.
And that's one where I think Bella Ramsey can overcome it. She's a good actress, but it's just something about that character so far. Like it was felt a little bit too rough, a little bit too contentious.
Yeah. Which without spoiling the rest of it, right? Because I've played the game through, and I kind of expect some of that stuff to follow along with the movie or the show. There's some things Ellie in the video game does where she, you'll go from 0 to 100 as far as her temperament. And you're like, holy shit, this little fucking kid's like, all of a sudden she's Chucky from Child's Play. Where I think in the show, she's already her base level of like aggression is already a little higher.
Yeah.
So she's not going to have to climb that much more to do some of the crazy shit what I think will eventually do in the show as well.
And you know what? I think it'll work though. I think so far it has been good enough where when they give Bella Ramsey the sort of softer, more tender scenes to play, I think she'll be able to do those, and you just need that to balance out the rest of it.
I think her acting's going to be way better, more believable in those scenes. I think she'll pull off the emotionality way better. Or at least she's capable of, I think, doing it.
Yeah, and she just hasn't had those yet, and she doesn't naturally sound soft and sweet. So like it'll be fine. That's what I think. That is my hope and my prediction thus far. And like I said, I alluded to earlier, I think Pedro Pascal has nailed Joel.
He's great.
I was worried that we would have another Witcher situation on our hand because I like Henry Cavill as much as the next guy, but to me, when he was in the Witcher show, it always sounded like he was doing a bad impression of the main character. I'm trying to speak like Geralt, but it's like Henry Cavill, he just doesn't sound natural. It sounds really forced. Like, bro, just make the character your own. And I think somehow Pedro Pascal both sounds like Joel, but it also feels really unique to Pedro Pascal, which is really important because like 90% of the show is just Joe and Ellie.
Yeah.
Joel and Ellie.
Or of the video game, at least.
Yeah. Well, and just like we got a lot more of Sarah in the first episode than you do in the game, I think we're gonna get a lot more of other side characters.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see how that plays out because I think there's gonna be, little bits of the story that were only touched upon in the game that we're gonna see a lot more of in the show.
Yeah.
Quick question, Mando, what is your Mount Rushmore of zombie related, shows and movies?
That's a tough one. I think I'd have to go with The Walking Dead, Shaun of the Dead, 28 Days Later, and then I don't know. I'd have to think about a couple other ones. I've seen a ton of them, so
there are 4 faces on Mount Rushmore. I had to check. I always forget there's 4 or 5. What would this have to do to get up there? Yeah, because for me that's actually pretty similar. Like the 28 Days Later and Shaun of the Dead are up there for me too. 28 Days Later was one of the first times we saw the fast zombies.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, holy shit! Like this is terrifying.
I think if The Last of Us follows actual okay, Game of Thrones did a lot like really this very well, where like a character does something and there's a consequence for that character's action, or this person, I pissed this person off, it'll come back later to bite me in the ass.
Yeah.
And the direction people take their actions, why they take certain actions. As long as this show follows that and doesn't just like, throw something at you, you just believe it. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's got to be real. It's got to stick to reality, like how a character would respond in a certain scenario, which the writing in the video game at least made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So as long as they don't stray too far from that formula, I think they'll be all right.
Well, and I think the other thing that they have to nail is the character arcs. Because I think in certain shows, as long as it's consistent, you can even make some allowances for plotting if the way the characters react to things, like the way it affects the character, feels consistent.
Yeah.
And that's probably, I think, the best part of the game is, Joel starts in this place where he just really is kind of checked out on life.
Yeah.
Like it kind of seems like emotionally he kind of died that same day his daughter did.
Yeah.
And then you get this arc of him kind of, coming back alive emotionally again. And
his walls go down some.
Yeah. And changing the way he's looking at the world. And like Ellie starting at a place where maybe she innocent, perhaps not the right word, but maybe a little bit more naive, maybe a little bit more trusting in a way. And she kind of goes in the opposite direction. And like, I hope they can capture that and play that out in a way that's maybe not just as good as the game, but hopefully better, where they can kind of expand upon that.
Yeah. So I assume we're going to be doing for Binge or Purge, we're going to just be following The Last of Us episode by episode, the way we did Willow. Crossing our fingers that this show does not suck.
It's not going to be, it will not be as bad as Willow.
So,
there's no way.
Yeah. So high hopes. Aaron, do you have anything else to say before we wrap the episode up?
Nah.
Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate when a friend, family member, whatever I haven't seen in a long time says, "Hey, dude, I listened to your podcast and that shit was funny," or this, I like this part of your episode, or whatever. Like that tells me we're doing an okay job. We're not novices anymore. But thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching.
Dude, we're at least podcasting blue belts now.
Blue belts?
Yeah.
What's the one before blue belt?
White belt.
Really? It goes from white to blue?
Yeah.
I always thought blue is pretty solid, like as far as
it is. That's you've been
okay.
It usually takes it like at least a year or 2 years to get a blue belt.
Okay, so we're a blue belt. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you guys in the week. Bye.